when all theaters open again, I will be back on the road for at least a little bit. You know, I had all these shows lined up and then they all had to move. So I have a bunch of them now that are sort of tentatively locked into place on calendar, and it's all just going to be determined by when things can open up and how things are going to roll out again. If they're going to stick when they're in the calendar, they might keep pushing back a little bit, but you know, I'll be right back out there doing my best to make people smile, because I think at the end of this, people are going to want to go out and have, you know, collective experience, shared experience, have fun with each other again. And I think that is you know, theater is a great place for that, a great forum for that. So my hope is that hopefully that's soon, but in the meantime, I'm doing what I can to keep people smiling until the doors are open again. But I'll be back. I'm like a rash that I've got a salve for. I keep popping up even if you don't want me to. Hey everybody, it's me, Dixie Longate, star of Dixie's Tupperware Party. If you want to learn more, watch this video. I'll make sure to make you giggle. I first knew about Tupperware when I was a little, like my mama used to have Tupperware parties all the time when I was little, but I didn't think much of it. You know, all the ladies would come over and they'd lock themselves in a room. And I just thought it was the lesbian recruitment tribe. But it turns out they were talking about food storage, which is very exciting and everything. And my mama used to give me one of them little Tupperware balls that the kids would play with. And I'd have the best time with that ball in my hand, you know, dreaming of what things will be like when I'm older. And so I knew about it, but it wasn't until much later when I was a friend of mine said, hey, do you want to go to a Tupperware party? And I was like, okay, let's do it. Because I needed some plastic bowls, you know, and I'd gotten out of prison, and my parole officer's adorable lesbian. She said, you need a job in order to get your kids back. So when I went to this Tupperware party for this lady to kind of get me started, I was like, oh, this is not something I'm going to do because it's for old ladies. But then I saw these ladies drinking and I was like, oh, this is a job for me. If I can drink while I'm working, I'm like, this is something I'm going to stick with. And then I went to the Tupperware Jubilee, which is the big Tupperware convention that they hold. Normally it's in Orlando, Florida, which is where the world headquarters is, but sometimes they move it around and everything. And I said, oh, well, this is fun. And I watch all these ladies get on stage, get recognized for all their accomplishments, all the sales they've done, and the you know, how big they've grown their organizations and everything. And I just watched them getting showered with praise and people cheering for them and everything. And I said, I want to do that. I want to be up on that stage getting people cheering at me, because normally like the most thing anybody had ever done for me is like throw, you know, quarters and stuff. Like I was from a really poor area of town, so like people didn't even throw dollars if you're swinging around the pole. They throw quarters, which tends to leave a mark, you know. And so I just thought, no, I want somebody throwing praise and love at me. And so I started doing Tupperware parties, and I made the determination I was going to be the #1 selling Tupperware lady in the entire United States and Canada, and get up on that stage. And dang it, if I didn't do that exact thing, I became the top selling Tupperware lady in the whole United States and Canada, which I didn't even know they had foods in a part of Canada, and they do. They do. I got so excited about Tupperware because of all the, you know, all the ideas about you can make your own money, you can run your own business and everything. And then I was doing I was doing parties, and then I started finding what was so interesting to me is I would talk to people. I get to the parties a little bit earlier. I talk to the people I was setting up. You know, there's always the host and a couple of the host's friends just milling about, and I would talk to them. And I'd be like, oh, you know, they'd ask about me, and I'd tell them my story and where I'm from, what I do. And then I'd say, well, tell me about you. And they'd always say, well, my husband works for this company. I'd say, okay, but well, tell me about you. And they said, well, I have 2 kids, one's in ballet and one's in soccer. And I noticed that so many of these ladies were talking about themselves through other people. And without even realizing it, they sort of were forgetting that they were their own person. They had their own identity. And I said, you know, I want to sit down and I want to write a show. I want to come up with something that really celebrates these women and sort of gets them to understand that they're better than they're giving themselves credit for, that they deserve to be celebrated. And so when I sat down, I said, I'm going to write myself a show based on this Tupperware party experience and see what I can do with it. But I wanted to make it a love letter for all the ladies that have come to the Tupperware parties and all the ladies before them. And so what was so fascinating, because a lot of people don't realize this, when Tupperware got started, it was created by Earl Tupper, and he was an inventor, and he created these plastic bowls, and it was nobody had ever seen anything like that in the consumer world before. Bowls up to that point were like either metal or they were ceramic dishes and stuff. If you drop them, they would break, and you know, it's just, you couldn't keep things fresh. You put wax paper over it to keep things fresh. But he came up with this idea. He made these plastic bowls, and then he made a lid based on the idea of a paint can, because if you get like paint stays fresh forever in a paint can. And he he's like, how do they do that? So he like studied the paint can lid, and he used that as the basis for the Tupperware seal. And it was able to lock in the freshness of the food so much longer. So it was such a crazy great thing, but it was sitting on store shelves and nobody was investigating it. So they weren't selling. And then a woman named Brownie Wise got a set of plastic bowls, and she was so blown away by them. She thought they were the greatest things. And she said, you need to demonstrate these things. People need to see how they work in order to get excited about them. And she had worked for a company called Stanley Home Products. So she would go door to door and sell different products. And she said, if I can take these and do them door to door, but let me do it even better. Let me take them into people's living rooms. Let me make a party out of it. And let me show people how they are used and show the people who will use them. Let me show the housewives who will use them, why they're so great and how they save money using them. And then maybe I can recruit a bunch of people to sell them with me. And so she started doing that. She was selling more Tupperware than any of the retail outlets. It turned out around the entire country. So Earl Tupper is like, why? How's this happening? What is this lady doing? So he flew her down to Orlando, talked to her. She told him, I created this party, and these women want to buy it at the party when they see how great it is. So he pulled it off of all the store shelves in the entire country, made her the vice president of Tupperware and created the home party division. And she was the reason that it became so successful. This lady came out and she created all this stuff, and she supported all these women who were there selling it with her. And she became this real icon in the business. I'm sorry, I got a little problem in there. And she became this icon in the business world. And Business Week magazine flew down to do a story on this emerging plastics company. And they were so taken by her. They said, I want to talk to her. They did a whole story about her. Turns out she was the first woman ever on the cover of Business Week magazine, all because of Tupperware. And so to me, I was always fascinated by that story when I found out about it. And I was like, this is a great story about women and the celebration of women and the power of women. Because prior to that, women were, they were sort of shoved into the kitchen. Then the war happened, and then they all became Rosie the Riveter. They all had these, these things that they were doing for their country. They were being empowered. They were working. They were doing something really wonderful and patriotic. And then after the war, they were just thrown back into the kitchen, like they were not useful. And what I loved about Tupperware is she was able to get these same women to go back out and say, no, I am useful. I do have a reason. I do have a purpose, and be bigger members of their family, bigger members of their community, be able to make their own money. And so that's why I was so fascinated by what she did. And so I said, I want to celebrate her. And at the same time, I want to celebrate all these unsung women around the world that sort of think of themselves as, oh, I'm just a housewife. Oh, I just have, I live my identity through other people. So that's why I became so obsessed with it, and then wanted to tell that story. I have so many pieces of Tupperware that I love that I use all the time. First of all, my wine opener, I'm never too far away from my wine opener, because, you like when you're drinking, you're like, oh, I'm parched. And then you got to reach to the pistachio wine that you have in the back and then put it up in the front seat. The hardest thing to do is when you can't open that wine bottle. And it's a really bad form to use your teeth to open it. And so I thought, let me put my wine bottle right there in the glove box, next to the gloves. Who knew? And then I'd take it, and then I could open a wine bottle. And before that red light turns green, I'm drinking a bottle of wine. It is the nicest thing, especially in the summer months when it gets so hot outside and you just get so parched. I love that. And then, of course, if I open a bottle of wine, I don't want to drink straight out of the bottle, because, that's frowned on. Whatever. And so I put it in my Tupperware tumbler, my sippy cup, which is amazing. Some people are like, oh, it's just for children's. Shush. Okay, we have these 16-ounce tumblers that are the best thing that's ever happened to anybody. And on the top of them is this little hole that you can stick the straw in, because when there's a hole, you got to stick it in, and then you can pull it out, and then it seals all up. And then you're like, oh, my Lord, it's sealed up. So that, like, if you spill it or turn it over, it's not going to drip out. How many times has happened? You're driving down the street and you run over like a baby or whatever, and you're like, oh no, I spilled my drink. You already got to clean the front of the car to get the baby out. But then you also have to be like, oh no, I got to clean the inside of my car because I spilled my drink. This way, you ain't got to worry about that, because that spill-proof tumbler stays sealed up like that. It's the nicest thing in the world. I love it. I will take it up with me when I go to church. When they say, oh, it's time for shots for Jesus, and then you walk up to the front of the church, and then the reverend has that, big old carton of wine, that box, and he's like, oh, this is Jesus or whatever, and puts it in but he puts in these little shot glasses. And I'm like, no, first of all, shots are for the bar. They're not for church. And second of all, I read my Bible. Jesus was 6'2". He bled a hell of a lot more than that. Like, fill that up. So I took my tumbler up with me, and then I just let him fill it up. And then he don't have to come back for refills, because it's always so bad when you're sitting there, at the church, and you're like, oh, still thirsty. And then he's already gone around, the Reverend has to the other side of it. And you're like, come back, because then he pretends like he don't see you when you're like, over here, and he does see me. Like, I don't make enough noise that it's distracting, but I make enough noise that he can definitely hear me. And then he pretends not to. And then that's just awkward, And so that way I'm just like, bring my sippy cup up and fill it up. It's fine. It's just, okay, just fill it. So, that's what I do. And so that's what I have, this Jello shot caddy. It's so, well, Tupperware says you're supposed to put cupcakes on it. I put 34 Jello shots on it. Let me tell you something. If you're going somewhere nice, like the principal's office or whatever, because you got to call because, you're not supposed to, your son keeps getting in fights, and, you're not supposed to throw kids in the dumpster, whatever. Okay. So what you do is you come to apologize when the principal calls you up. But if you walk in with gel shots on your hand, that principal will let your child off the hook every single time. I just walk in and I'm like, living a maid, freshman's, and then they put them in. Now, I will caution you, you shouldn't make those, like, if you're in charge of refreshments for like the PTA, they frown on that. Or if you are doing, the carnival that they do at the end of the school year every year, and they're like, oh, you're in charge of refreshments, and then you bring Jello shots, they get super moody. And they're like, you're not supposed to bring alcohol to school grounds. I was like, wow, that's fine. And they're like, why did you make the kind of Jello shots with the alcohol in it? And I'm like, because I don't know the recipe for the kind without the alcohol in it. Duh. And so that's why I bought them. But I put them on my Jello shot container caddy, and it's the best thing. That is also, by the way, something you can bring to church, because, you can get thirsty at church. Like, when you're sitting to go up for communion and you're like, trying to get your motor running, just start drinking them, like just Jello shot right there. Especially if, like, you get to church late and so all that's available are like the pews in the back. That's what you should do. So I like those are awesome. My can opener is one of the best things that ever happened to anybody in the world. I can open a can with no sharp edges, lickety split. It's the best thing ever. And that thing is hefty. I can hit somebody at the ATM that's trying to give me problems, so there's all kinds of great crap at Tupperware. A lot of people think Tupperware is just like for old ladies, or it's the same as it always has been since your Meemaw had it. It has changed so much. It has grown so much to be able to keep up with the changing times and make schedules convenient. Because some people are like, oh, I'm busy, I got to go out and have sex behind the dumpster or whatever, and you don't always have time. Well, Tupperware, it makes you be able to have so much more time in your life, because you can cook effectively, you can store things effectively, you don't have to throw food away. It's amazing. It's the best thing in the world. So I started selling Tupperware, like I said, and then I was doing it for a while. I went and became the top seller in the entire United States and Canada. And then I thought, this story that I've been thinking about, I want to put this to more people, and not just in somebody's living room. And I was talking to a friend of mine who's a director for theater, and he said, you should do this as a play. And I'm like, shut up, And then he said, no, do it. And so we worked on it together, took it up to New York as part of this theater festival. Got a lot of attention there, which was so nice. And then ended up getting moved off Broadway, developed it for a couple of years, moved it off Broadway. And then, so in 2007, it had its off Broadway run. I called it Dixie's Tupperware Party, so it's not to be confusing, and then, and it went so good and got so much attention. Then that led to a tour, and that tour is it was on the road. They said, oh, you'll probably get like a year, maybe 2 years out of it. 12 stinking years later, it was still running. And if it hadn't been for coronavirus, I would still be running today, but it shut it down. So, like everything else. So I said, oh, I guess food storage, it's going to be a commodity coming up. So I've been doing, in the meantime, I've been doing little things where I've been doing like private events and Tupperware parties and fundraisers online to be able to help people out. I've been doing this whole time. So I've been using the social technology and everything to be able to be in people's homes without, you having to get the restraining order removed and everything. So it's really good. So, and that was just like an accidental lucky thing. I never thought I'd be doing it as a show. I never thought I'd be traveling the world with it. My show's been in 5 different countries, in places that I didn't even know spoke English. It's been all over the place. It's been translated. That got translated into Portuguese, and they did it in South America. And I was like, stop it, I can't stand it. I actually went to see it. I got to fly down to see it, and I was like, I don't know what they're saying. But they kept picking up bowls and everything. So I'm like, yay, Tupperware. And it was so stinking fun. I had such a good time. But yeah, and so it just sort of grew faster than I expected it to. I'd never had any intention of doing it that way, but it just, you know, the ideas just kept sort of rolling and rolling. And people were like, oh, do this. And then you should come to my theater and then do this. And why are you still under the dumpster? And you got to leave before my wife comes home. You know, all the things that people just say in passing. It's sort of like that. And I've had a great time. It's been such a rewarding experience being, you know, in theaters all over the country and meeting people all over the world. It's been really wonderful. When people come to Dixie's Tupperware Party, at first people don't know what to expect. It is a Tupperware party on stage. There's games and prizes and raffles. I get people up to help me with different demos and stuff. But the whole thing is the show is basically a Tupperware party on stage, but it's an allegory. I look at it like this. It's a story about women's empowerment, all told through Tupperware. So I detail a bit about Brownie Wise, the woman who created the Tupperware party. I talk about some of the ladies in the audience and inspire and empower them through that story. But it's all with Tupperware. And every piece of Tupperware I pick up, it reminds me of something. I talk about how it's used, but of course I spin stories and talk about the different stories. So it's not just me sitting there pitching crap all night long. It's me just like sharing stories and making people giggle and empowering them a little bit to be able to go out into the world and kick some of their own butt, you know, because I relate everybody in the audience to those ladies who were the first Tupperware ladies who went out. And, you know, and the first time they had a lot of them left their cities that they've been living in forever. Their husbands left their jobs. They moved to different cities so they could establish a whole Tupperware, you know, like a little center in each city that would sell Tupperware that would be kind of like the regional headquarters for this new thing back in the day. And so I sort of celebrate that and sort of celebrate the idea of picking yourself up your bootstraps and doing something amazing with your life that you didn't think was possible. I hope audiences get from, but not just Dixie's Tupperware Party, but all my shows that I do. I really want to inspire the audience to, you know, I want to leave them laughing, but I also want to leave them with a message of hope and excitement and optimism for the future and what they can do in the world, because I think we're so lucky to be here. You know, the odds of being here at all are so low. The odds of, you know, I talk about this in my new show, Dixie's Happy Hour. Like we're the swimmers that won. I say, like, you know, there are how many, you know, little wiggly guys go out toward that egg, and we're the ones that are here. And so it's like, okay, well, we beat the law of averages right there. So with that, it's an opportunity to go, what is possible? What can you do? What do you have the capability of doing? And how can you not only do something great for yourself, but also improve and inspire the world in doing something great for yourself? And so all of my shows always have that message of empowerment and going out into the world with a bigger smile on your face and doing something that's going to lift everybody up around you a little bit. I love doing the Tupperware parties because it's just fun. And I get to be with so many people and see so many people smile and hear so many people's stories. And I think, I think people galvanize to me because I'm like anybody else. I'm just, you know, somebody dealing with my own set of circumstances. I'm from Mobile, Alabama. I've been married 3 times. I got 3 kids, trying to go through my struggles in life just like everybody else. But I'm trying to find optimism through everything that I'm going through. And I think that's why people galvanize to me in my stories a little bit, because they see me as, oh, you know, she's just like us. She's just going through her day to day, trying to figure out the best way to get through it and hopefully put a smile on people's face, hopefully inspire myself to do better each day, and hopefully sit down and hit the ground running in the morning in a way that is going to make my day better, and then everybody I come in contact make their days better a little bit. And so I think people galvanize to the show and sort of are excited by coming to it because they see a little bit of themselves, what's possible if you just kind of focus on the good things, because there are so many bad things taking our attention right now. And so we can get mired down in that so easy, but it's about finding the ways to find the good pieces that are in front of you that you might not see right away, but they're there. You just have to switch your focus a little bit to see if you can find them. Thank you for spending some time with me today. If you want to learn more about my shows coming up, well, it's very simple. Dixie's Tupperware Party will be back on the road when the theaters open back up. So if you just go to DIXIE'S TUPPERWAREPARTY.com, you can find all the information about when that's going to be coming. And then if you want to see other stuff, just follow me on social media at Dixie Longate. I'm all over the place. You can't get rid of me.